d4.
Erigaisi begins with the standard queen's pawn opening, aiming to control the center immediately.
Knight f6.
Fedoseev responds with the most flexible developing move, controlling e4 and preparing for various queen's pawn setups.
c4.
Erigaisi proposes the queen's gambit, expanding control of the center and preparing for a potential e4 advance.
e6.
Fedoseev chooses the queen's gambit declined structure, solid and reliable.
Knight f3.
Erigaisi develops naturally, maintaining flexibility in the center.
d5.
Fedoseev establishes the classical pawn triangle of the queen gambit declined.
Knight c3.
Erigaisi completes development with the three knights variation, maintaining pressure on d5.
Bishop e7.
Fedoseev makes a solid development, preparing to castle and maintaining flexibility.
C takes d5.
The central battle begins.
E takes d5.
The central exchange leads to a symmetrical pawn structure. Fedoseev's task is to equalize with precise piece play.
Bishop f4.
A standard developing move.
Bishop d6.
A thematic move by Fedoseev, challenging Erigaisi's dark squared bishop immediately.
e3.
Supporting the center.
Bishop takes f4. E takes f4.
Erigaisi accepts a slightly damaged pawn structure to maintain central control.
Short castle.
Fedoseev completes development safely while Erigaisi's king remains in the center.
Knight e5.
Erigaisi establishes a strong knight outpost in the center.
Knight c6.
A logical development by Fedoseev, contesting Erigaisi's central control.
f3.
Erigaisi prepares for potential kingside action, but slightly weakens his king's position.
Bishop e6.
Fedoseev develops naturally, preparing to contest the center.
Queen d2.
Preparing to castle.
Knight takes e5. D takes e5. Knight d7.
A key strategic decision by Fedoseev, eliminating Erigaisi's strong knight and preparing to fight against the e5 pawn.
Long castle.
Erigaisi chooses the ambitious path of opposite side castling.
c6.
Fedoseev strengthens the center and prepares for potential queenside counterplay.
g4.
A sharp decision by Erigaisi, launching a direct kingside attack.
f5.
An excellent response by Fedoseev, immediately challenging Erigaisi's aggressive pawn advance.
Knight e2.
The critical mistake by Erigaisi. He should have played rook g1 to support the kingside advance.
F takes g4. Knight d4. Queen e7.
Fedoseev has gained the upper hand, with better pawn structure and more active pieces.
Rook g1. B takes f3. Bishop d3. King h8.
An overly cautious move by Fedoseev. Knight c5 was stronger, directly attacking Erigaisi's position.
Bishop c2. c5. Knight takes f3. Knight b6.
A series of inaccurate moves from both players, likely under time pressure.
Rook g5.
Erigaisi seeks activity on the kingside, targeting the g7 pawn and preparing potential tactical combinations involving the queen and rook.
Knight c4.
Is an interesting but not the most precise move. The knight occupies an active square, attacking the b2 pawn and exerting pressure on the queenside.
Queen d3.
Is a natural and strong move. Threat checkmate in h7.
g6.
Is a prophylactic move that reinforces the defense of the h7 pawn and prevents potential sacrifices.
Knight h4.
Is an active move, aiming to transfer the knight to the kingside, possibly to f5, to attack Fedosev's weaknesses.
Queen f7.
Is a solid move that strengthens the defense of the kingside.
Rook f1.
Is a logical move that reinforces the rook on the f-file, aligning it with Fedosev's queen and preparing potential tactical ideas.
Rook g8.
Is a prophylactic move that strengthens the defense of the kingside.
Queen g3.
Aims to increase pressure on the kingside, targeting the g6 pawn and preparing potential sacrifices or tactical ideas.
Bishop f5. Bishop takes f5.
A crucial mistake by Erigaisi, giving up the bishop pair without compensation.
G takes f5. Knight takes f5.
The decisive blunder by Erigaisi. He walks into a tactical sequence that loses material.
Queen takes f5. Rook takes f5. Rook takes g3. H takes g3. Knight e3.
Fedoseev emerges with a winning material advantage.
Rook g5. Knight takes f1. e6. Knight e3. Rook e5. d4.
Fedoseev begins the methodical conversion of the advantage.
Rook takes c5.
Erigaisi attempts to generate some counterplay by capturing black's c pawn, but this is insufficient to compensate for the material deficit. The position remains strategically lost due to black's better piece coordination and pawn structure.
b6.
A precise response by Fedoseev.
Rook h5.
Erigaisi redirects his rook to the kingside, hoping to create threats against black's king, but this proves ineffective.
King g7.
A strong centralizing move by Fedoseev. The king moves toward the center where it will become an active piece in the endgame while simultaneously avoiding any potential checks along the h-file.
King d2.
Erigaisi attempts to activate his king, but it's too late to prevent black's decisive advantage from materializing.
Rook e8.
Fedoseev brings his rook to an active position, threatening to support the advance of his passed pawn. This move demonstrates excellent endgame technique, keeping all pieces active and coordinated.
f5.
A desperate attempt by Erigaisi to create complications, but the move only weakens his position further.
King f6.
Fedoseev continues his excellent king centralization. The king now supports the advance of his pawns while maintaining control of critical squares.
Rook takes h7.
Erigaisi grabs a pawn in desperation, but this allows black's pieces to become even more active.
Knight takes f5.
A clean capture by Fedoseev that maintains his material advantage while positioning his knight ideally in the center.
Rook takes a7.
Another pawn grab by Erigaisi, but it doesn't address his fundamental problems.
Rook takes e6.
Fedosiev's rook takes control of the open e-file, preparing to support his passed pawns. The coordination between his pieces is now perfect.
g4.
A final attempt by Erigaisi to create some play on the king side.
Knight h4.
The concluding move of the game. The position is now completely hopeless for white, leading to Erigaisi's resignation.